Just as a disclaimer, I don't identify as either Democrat or Republican. I view myself as a moderate, but as an ex-Mormon, I do lean to the left. I grew up in a very conservative community in Provo, Utah, where the vast majority of people were both Mormon and Republican. And because everybody else was, so was I. In hindsight, I can see that I was a closet liberal because I was drawn to the theater kids. And many of my friends were more liberal leaning because their parents were professors at Brigham Young University. Who knew? I didn't have a good understanding of politics when I was in high school or even into my early adulthood because politics could be contentious and contention was of the devil. So it was much easier to just bury my head in the sand and do what everyone around me was doing. So when I was old enough to vote, I went to the booth voting straight ticket Republican without understanding the issues, without understanding the candidates. I just did it because that's what I was supposed to do. Additionally, I never learned critical thinking skills in school. Definitely didn't learn any in church. I was just expected to kind of follow the crowd. My political and moral awakening happened when I was about halfway through my teaching career. I taught elementary school for over 18 years. And as I taught them critical thinking skills. I taught them empathy, compassion. I taught from history where we could learn from the mistakes of the past. And even though I taught in this largely white community in Utah, the kids couldn't understand why Ruby Bridges was ostracized and threatened when she went to school because of the color of her skin. Some of my kids immigrated from other countries because their parents were seeking a better life for them. Some of my kids were on free and reduced lunch because their families couldn't provide. Most of my kids understood what it felt like to be bullied, and they didn't like that. They also learned that the bullies largely have pretty deep insecurities, and they try to make themselves feel better by putting other people down. I cared for these kids. I cared for their safety. So when we would have lockdown drills preparing for a potential shooter to come into our school, it wasn't hard for me to buy into the idea of gun reform. And I loved teaching social emotional learning skills to my kids. I loved the changes it made in them. I loved the changes that it made in me. So as I look at everything that I've learned in my time as an educator, I can see why the far right is trying to censor education. When I vote today, sometimes I vote for Republicans. Sometimes I vote for Democrats. Sometimes I vote for independents. Character is far more important to me than a letter behind someone's name on the ballot. I left the Mormon church shortly after I left my career in education. It was that career in education that paved the way, that helped me understand that I needed to educate myself on my church. And I realized that a lot of what the church taught was contrary to what I believed, what I valued in my life.